We're Anton and Natalie, a husband and wife adventure elopement photography team from New Hampshire. In 2019, we spent a lot of time exploring Europe, from delicious food in Italy to rugged adventures in Iceland and a cultural immersion in Russia. 2020 has put a hard stop to our foreign adventures, and like many others, we spent the year getting to know our own backyard. But after the lockdowns eased, we couldn't resist our temptations and we hit the skies again to explore our beautiful public lands on the West Coast. 2021 has brought a lot of reflection into our lives, and we decided to convert a van and road trip across America on a journey to find freedom as the world races to get back to the norm.
So one of the first things in your van conversion process, after you have insulated the floor and put the subflooring in, is deciding on whether you want to leave the exposed subflooring wood and just polyurethane it. In our case, we decided to go with vinyl flooring just for that extra protection from moisture, water, spills, and also durability. And I'll walk you through the process of how we're installing it and some of the decisions that we made along the way to get here. So when we first were deciding on what kind of vinyl flooring to install in our van, we had a couple of options. We could go with really thin stick-on stuff, and it just seemed cheap and it seemed like it wasn't going to be super durable. And we also have some spots in the van floor where there are seams, so I was just worried that they would not sit well over those seams. So at first we decided to go with these thicker boards, and I'll just show you kind of how they flex in a second. So these boards that we first got, they're pretty thick. They're about 1/4 inch thick, and if I try bending it, you'll see that there's not much give. They're very sturdy, and if you look at the texture, they mimic real wood really well. Now, the only problem with that approach, as we have learned, is it's extremely difficult to cut. So this is all wasted product. And the biggest problem is if we were installing these planks in a straight line, it would have been okay. But we had a lot of these curves up here and like around the wheel wells where cutting these in shapes like this was incredibly difficult and virtually impossible. And let me just show you what happens when you try to cut a curve in something like this. So as you can see, it doesn't really break very well. So this was a huge struggle. So instead of going with these thicker pieces that were breaking, we went with cheaper and thinner, more flexible stick-on sheets. And you can see these are pretty flexible. Like I can just bend it with one hand. And the way these work is you cut them in the same manner that you would cut these with a knife. And then you peel the backing off and you stick it on. So these thinner sheets have worked out really well for us so far. I had no issue cutting them to these complicated curve shapes over here. They cut extremely easily, and it looks absolutely gorgeous. Now what we're doing here is I'm staggering these by about 6 inches. now what we're doing here is we are staggering these pieces of vinyl by about 6 inches just to create a more natural wood flooring pattern. So this is our flooring progress. It's coming along, to say the least. We hit a few kinks, but we're on track. All right, so as you can see, we're making pretty good progress on the vinyl flooring. We did a lot of the hard spots, like around the wheel wells here. So now we're just kind of cruising. So I'm going to show you how to cut this effectively and properly. Actually, I don't really know if it's properly because we're pretty new to this. And we've messed up quite a few times, so it's a work in progress. One of the things, if you're doing stick-on, doesn't really matter a ton, especially for a van, but they do have arrows. So if you put all of these down in the same direction, so we're doing like arrows facing the front of the van, supposedly the grain pattern on the vinyl is going to look nicer than if you do them willy-nilly. I think I might have messed up a couple of them, but you honestly can't tell. I think it looks pretty good regardless. So what I'm going to do here is, actually for this one, yeah, so one of the other tips that I can suggest based on what I've learned on YouTube is you don't want to line up all of the planks directly like this, because then what you're going to end up with is you're going to have seams that run the whole width of your van. And maybe you don't mind, but it looks nicer when they're kind of staggered like this. So for that reason, what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to probably stick this one on full size over here. And then the next one we're going to shorten. So I'm going to show you that in a second. So applying these is pretty easy. What you want to do is position first the corner that's going to touch the other plank. So in this case, I'm going up right to this line over here, which is where our shower is going to be. So I'm going to put this over like that. And as you can see, so this area over here is actually a little bit lower. So sometimes if you have uneven spots in the floor, it does help to pad them with something. So I'm just going to add a little bit of tape here. So this is kind of, ideally speaking, if your van floor is perfectly straight, you shouldn't have to do this. And I kind of hate having to do this, but it is what it is. So I'm just going to add a little bit of duct tape here, just so that this area is a little bit more flat. You don't need a ton, but if you have uneven spots, this is a way to address it. Doesn't have to look pretty or anything. So usually if it's just a really minor imperfection, 3 or 4 layers does the trick. Now, one thing with duct tape is to make sure that everything is properly sticking on. If you are doing, where'd the kill mat roller go? Here we go. If you're using kill mat and you have one of these rollers from the kill mat installation, just roll the duct tape out like this, just to make sure that it's nice and flush. Perfect. So I'm going to try this again. Hopefully it's a little bit better this time. So so you want to start with the corner like this and make sure that you first press the corner in, and then as you're moving, you first align the side press it in as hard as you can, and then start to move this down. There we go. And along the edges, just kind of press down with your fingers. There we go. So one of the ways I'm going to show you how to do contours. One of the ways, if you don't have a contour gauge, you can take a piece of cardboard. In this case, I'm just going to use scrap. And you put this next to wherever your contour is, and just take a straight edge and start from where the piece will actually, where the cutout will start, right? So I'm going to place this like that. And then what you can do is you can either draw a line or just put dots. So find a spot on the straight edge. So I'm going to use 2-inch mark, for example, right? I'm going to place a spot at 2 inches. I'm going to move it along the curve just by a little bit. Mark around 2 inches, mark around 2 inches, and so forth. And what you'll see, and this is not going to be precise just because I'm doing this for an example. So once you complete the curve, you'll see, here you go, here's your line. And then you can, what I recommend is just nicely completing the line with your Sharpie.
Connect the dots.
Connect the dots. There we go, voila. And so I've already done this on my actual piece that I'm going to use. But that's your contour, and this is the one that I've done earlier. You can see it fits perfectly. So that's an easy way to do contours without any special tools. So we wrote a little message. We are wrapping up the floor installation, and we're going to be selling this van in a couple of years, most likely. So maybe somebody will find this if they decide to remodel the floors.
It says #OrderTheVan 2021 Anton Natalie. Built with lots of love in NH. And we also wrote, built for adventures, happiness, freedom, and building memories together.
Hopefully this actually fits.
That would be very anticlimactic. Yeah.
You have to like bend this a little bit so it's...
Goodbye.